accident between pool and skate. I'm not sure if it was, I don't know, but I don't know.
There'll be a big advertisement that shows like all the time slots that everybody donated.
Yeah, it should be in the hub this week and the next, the following 2 weeks also.
I think we were down on pool. I think we were down on pool sponsors, so we might be sponsoring the pool more than skate. But
okay, no, that's great.
Jameson, we're live.
I just wanted to go out. So
okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everybody to the regular meeting of council, December 14th. You have before you a copy of tonight's agenda. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Grunewagen. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Any declarations of interest tonight? None being noted, we'll move on to item number 4, announcements, awards, ceremonies, and presentations. Is there anything from council? Then I will, anything from administration? SAO Smith?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, so moving on to item number 5, a regular meeting of council minutes for November 30th, 2020. Looking for a motion. Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that council accepts the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on November 30th, 2020 as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 5B, special meeting of council minutes dated December 7th, 2020. Need a motion. Councillor Dufert, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that council accept the minutes of the special meeting of council held on December 7th, 2020.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dowie. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, no business arising from the minutes. Moving on to item number 7, administrative inquiries. I'll pass it over to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We'll jump right into the updates from directors. I'll ask that the Director of Protective Services start tonight.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of items for tonight. First one is the Fire Smart work is complete from the ballpark to Lagoon Road, and I have to say that the work that was done was awesome. It's same caliber work that was done on the West Channel, and I'm very pleased with the results of it. Second thing, I had the opportunity over the past week to recognize a number of firefighters for different things. I presented some long service awards. Some 2-year awards went to Desmond Kutri, Omar Hajam, Julia Janicki, Daniel Slade, Jaden Smith. A 5-year long service award went to our Ian Thiessen. 10 years went to Daryl Bueller, and 15 years went to Terrence Fisher. And our firefighter of the year was Crystal Potter. I did have the opportunity also to recognize the top 5 firefighters for this year for the number of functions and number of hours they put into the department. The first one was Crystal Potter at 298 functions, 383.5 hours. Second one, Trina Swan, 201 functions, 324 hours. Captain Ralph Sanguez, 176 functions, 211 hours. And Captain Kirsten Fisher, 130 functions, 184 hours. And firefighter Stacy Barnes, 120 functions and 178.5 hours. So it's a real pleasure for me to be able to recognize these people for their contribution to the fire department. They're all great people to work with. And that's about all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Please pass on our congratulations and our thanks behalf of myself and council. Any questions for our director? Okay, none being noted. SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. The Director of Finance.
Thank you, Your Worship. Apologies, I'm just struggling to get my, there it is. Sorry about that. Property assessments were mailed on Friday. So appeal requests must be submitted within 45 days of that, and instructions are included with the assessments. We've made some revisions to the financial administration bylaw, which will be brought forward to the policy committee later this week. We've also reviewed what user fees are being charged within finance and provided input to changes to be incorporated into the fees bylaw. I'd also like to update the town hall hours will continue to be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Over the next few weeks of the holiday season, except for Christmas Eve, in which the office is closing at noon. The office is closed on Christmas Day, December 28th, in recognition of Boxing Day, and on New Year's Day. On days when the office is open, staff will be available to answer calls from 8:30 to 5. However, several of our staff will be taking time off over the holidays. Lastly, a reminder to members of the public that masks are now required in town facilities, which includes the town hall building. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our Director of Finance? Oh, I'm sure there'll be lots coming up. Okay, SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. The Director of Recreation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, everyone. The big operational update is again regarding the mandatory mask policy, which came into effect today. It does affect the recreation center. We've received some questions over the weekend and confirming some details regarding our facilities and some of the activities that happen at the facilities, but no complaints and very good compliance from patrons and staff, both over the weekend, even though it wasn't mandatory yet, but definitely today seems to be going well. Our maintenance staff with some contractors did some important repairs to our ice plant last week. Simcoe Refrigeration was in town doing an early mid-season visit, and they did an inspection and also repaired a faulty sensor which had affected us earlier, but that has been repaired now and the ice plant's operating well. There's also been some repairs to our ice resurfacer. We were operating with the spare machine, and now we have our main ice resurfacer back in the building, and we're happy to see that ice quality is improving a bit, even though it was still good ice quality, but it's a little better now. We're experiencing some problems in the aquatic center with relation to the air handler unit. There's a bit of extra humidity in the pool area. It's related to the cold weather. Should be able to make adjustments because we did significant repairs in 2019, 2020 to that air handler. And now it's just a matter of tweaking the new VFD fans that we have in there and determining exactly how we need to set everything so that it can operate automatically. Holiday season programming and hours of operations have been communicated to the public. Summary though is that we're going to 12 to 6 operating hours, noon to 6 operating hours as of December 24th until January 4th. With 2 days that we have full closures on Christmas Day or December 25th and on January 1st. Outdoor rink progress was slowed by the cold weather. We don't expect to be able to get much work done in this type of weather, but as soon as the weather is a little better, we'll get back out there and get the rinks ready. The Ray Benoit rink is ready. There have been people skating on the Ray Benoit rink. I know there were 2 more floods done to the Old Town rink on Friday, but it's not quite ready for people to skate on yet. Lastly, the rec committee had a meeting last Thursday. They reviewed some of the 2020, or I updated them on the 2021 budget planning. They also reviewed 3 rec or tourism funding applications and gave the support to those funding applications. And they did initial review of the 2021 rec policy, which I will bring to the council's policy committee as soon as possible. Those are my updates.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Any questions from council? Okay, none being noted. Back to you, SAO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship, the Director of Public Works and Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. From the Public Works side, a few updates this week. On the roads side of things, we had the sander out today. We'll continue to try and ensure that we have sand down on the roads this week. Hoping to put off snow clearing itself until, or the plan right now is to put it off until next week. These extreme cold temperatures are not the best conditions to be having our machinery out there. Run greater risk of running into issues or breaks on the machinery, which would result in longer delays. So the plan right now is to do snow clearing early next week when the temperatures are supposed to warm up. Other things, there was a water break late last week on Ptarmigan and corner of Ptarmigan and Woodland. Plan right now is we're aiming for Wednesday to get that fixed. The water from it is sticking to the ditches and isn't flooding out anybody's houses or getting onto the roads. So in order to just make sure we're prepped to do the repair properly, we're aiming for Wednesday on that. We had sewer issues on Pine on Sunday. Got things flowing fine, but had a couple of high alarms at our lift stations based off of that, but things are flowing now and have been flowing well today. So hopeful that things continue to flow there. The cold weather is never fun for the water and sewer infrastructure here. On the water side of things, our water quality levels towards the end of last week were getting worse again. They've kind of stabilized, not as good as we hope, but they are still under the limits of the guidelines. So we've been seeing some color in the water, which normally doesn't happen this time of year. But the good part of it is we are still under the guidelines. So we're hoping we stay there and the water improves with these cold temperatures. Hopefully the lake freezes, which leads to improved water. On our water license, the Mackenzie Valley Land and Water Board sent the license along with their recommendation to the minister. So that process is continuing. We're waiting on the minister to sign it now, and then we'll have a new water license. And I was in a meeting this morning for the waste recovery and reduction advisory committee. It's a G&W committee made up of some people in community government and the private sector as well. Some good initiatives that the GNWT is looking to put out. I don't think some of the things we discussed, I don't think are public knowledge yet, so I can't really get into too much of the details, but sounds like there is some good initiatives that will be coming out on waste reduction and recycling efforts from the GNWT in the future. And those are my updates for this week.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we get that message out there about the water and our that we're testing it daily and it's still within the limits there. I think I've seen some stuff on social media over the weekend there and people are seeing color, so they were just asking about it. So I don't know if we have some messaging out there yet or not, but yeah, it might be just an advisory to do that.
Okay, we can do that. Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I was just wondering, what about the checking of the intake water line? What's the plan on that?
Back to Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. That is planned for Q1 of 2021. At this point now, we're waiting for ice to form on Great Slave Lake and get to the levels, the thickness they need. I don't have dates from the contractor here yet, but I have touched base with them in the past couple of weeks, and it is still on their radar, and they are planning for later this winter to get out and do that inspection.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I've just had some questions from residents in our community with respect to the water, and realizing that the water treatment plant is the new process is probably going to take a number of years, 3 to 5 years perhaps. What are we looking at doing, or are we going to consider temporary measures to make sure that our water continues to be stable through the period until we get the new water treatment plant in place? What are we doing to make sure that takes place? Thank you.
Who wants to answer that one? Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. We will attempt to do what we can. There's only so much we can do with the existing infrastructure that we do have and the conditions that we are seeing in the water this year. Hopefully, these conditions don't persist indefinitely. There was some recommendations coming out of the MACA report that we had done on the water treatment plant, just in terms of looking at sending samples of our water out, seeing if there's different chemical combinations that we can use in the treatment. I know we've done some of this stuff. Most of this stuff we've done in the past is what I've been told, but we will look at doing, following through on the recommendations out of that MACA report, seeing if there is different chemical combinations that might treat the water that we're seeing now a little better. For the most part, from my understanding of it, is some of the things that we are seeing, our plant just isn't designed to really get the color out of the water or deal with some of those issues. But we will make every effort to see what we can do to improve our processes and hopefully not be in long boil water advisories.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? None being noted, back to you, SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. Just a few things from myself. I guess first off, I'll just speak to the first official COVID case that was announced in our community over the weekend. Council and myself, probably some impact to others on administration as well. Certainly just sharing information and monitoring based on what knowledge we had, but really, in the roles or in the responsibility of the very competent public health to manage that case. So we did share some public notice. We just want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on our community and responses to it, and ensuring that everyone's acting appropriately. But we are in very close communication on a weekly basis with various departments tied into response plans. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up. From outside of that, policy and bylaw really has been the focus from my office and many of the directors on the call as well. It was mentioned already, the development and implementation of our face mask policy for the town of Hay River facilities, which went into place today. Public's required to wear face masks within those facilities. And there are exceptions, primarily around physical activity occurring at the community center. There also are some exceptions for staff as well. That's outlined through our human resource policy. We have a policy committee on Wednesday at 6 p.m. this week. There's 6 policies that are on the agenda for review. Sorry, I should say bylaws. That's the management and excluded employees bylaw, the fees and charges bylaw, which is a new omnibus bylaw, which consolidates the majority, if not all, of our rates that are referenced in bylaws. Taxi licensing, our financial admin, snow removal, and traffic bylaw. So a lot of work, a lot of administrative work to do those updates and put it all together for the committee, and it'll get in front of council at another point in the new year based on recommendations of that committee. Kind of as mentioned, it did have a community check-in, a first community check-in with the COVID Secretariat, which also had departments of MACA, public health, were on the call. So it was a dedicated check-in with the town of Hay River to discuss emergency planning readiness and where we are. Obviously in our community, we're quite lucky to have our the Hay River Health and Social Services, the medical response systems through that, our own fire department, and the private sector, which has been providing already access to goods, medicines, groceries, etc. That's needed in various scenarios under surge planning. So anyways, that meeting's gone well. And again, we continue to maintain communication with those parties. Another major activity milestone last week, closing on Friday, was the completion and submission of our ISIP application. So included in that application was a new solid waste management facility and the closure of the current facility, several roads projects, water treatment plant feasibility and pre-design work, and our cultural and a couple of cultural, actually 3 cultural and rec facility improvement projects. So totaled about 15 million, I think, in eligible funding through ISIP. Applications were probably over 500 pages. So a lot of work, and big thanks to administration for putting that together. I also wanted to just give notice through our long service awards. So we haven't been able to gather as a company to celebrate and recognize those employees for long service as we usually do in the last few years because of COVID safe practices. But we did attend several lunch hour type gatherings with each department, and just wanted to recognize a few employees. So Kevin Douglas received his 5-year continuous service award. He's been with the company back and forth a couple of times, so he has more years on top of that with us, but 5 most recently. Jim Kaiser for 10 years, our chief Ross Potter for 10 years of service, and Dave Manuel for 15 years. And that concludes my update and administration's update for today.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, just a comment on Glenn's first note there about our first confirmed COVID case in Hay River over the weekend. There was a lot of talk, a lot of stories going around, and I just want to remind the public and everyone that the Office of the Chief Public Health Officer will share the facts with everyone via public health advisories. And I'm just going to read a note from Dr. Candola that she tweeted on the weekend. Just a reminder to everyone, please do not spread misinformation and rumors. They hurt all of us by causing needless panic and will prevent people from coming forward for COVID-19 testing. Being kind to each other is how we get through this, not with fear. So it is hard to not listen to everything people are saying, but just rest assured that the office of the CPHO will be sharing the facts. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Chambers. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to thank the local health authority too and the employees there for all the work they do for our community. So thank you for that. And also thank you for the people that are celebrating their service awards. Appreciate having people that have been around this long, and it's really good to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions from council? Okay, none being noted, we'll move on to item 8A, 2021 Consolidated Capital Budget. So back to CEO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to pass the presentation on to our Director of Finance. I just wanted a couple words in advance, though. It's been, I think, just over 10 weeks since administration first approached the committee or council with our preliminary capital budget at that time. By my count, we've had over 6 meetings since with Finance Committee, council, and the public, and obviously several within administration to get to this point. In addition to that, we were able to advance the development and presentation of our 10-year capital plan, which was more detailed than I've seen so far at my time with the town. But it certainly, we hope, painted a picture of the financial needs for the town of Hay River, and from a mid to long-term perspective of what sustainment of those assets look like. So yeah, tonight is kind of the culmination of all the time and effort invested by everyone on this call, and input that has been received from the public to council. And yeah, we hope through it that it leaves you with a position to make an informed decision tonight. So I thank you, and I'll pass it on to our Director of Finance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Sarah Smith, would you be able to let me share my screen here? I just want to go through a couple of slides to highlight some of the changes since we last brought this information before council. Okay, so again, this will be quite brief, but I just wanted to speak to our reserve summary. I think it's important to consider what the impact on our reserves is as council considers approval of this budget. So at this point, we're anticipating opening reserves of $3,115,000 for 2021. So that's on the assumption that we transfer $1 million to capital from 2020. As we discussed earlier at our Q3 update, we think that there may be more. We're forecasting a bigger transfer as a result of some of the savings that we saw this year. But just to keep this comparable with what you saw as part of the 10-year capital plan and previously saw in the capital budget, I'm using that $1 million figure for this. So it may be a bit conservative, but we're also projecting a transfer as part of the 2021 budget from O&M to capital of $1.5 million. We're projecting draws from reserves in 2021 of $2,287,000, and that figure is increased from when council saw it as part of the capital plan. SEO Smith spoke to this when we went through the 10-year capital plan. That change primarily came from us moving forward the timeline of when we were going to be doing the work on Beaver. We'd actually planned to do it all around. It was just an oversight in the first version of the budget. It didn't change the total dollars. It just shifted when that work was going to be done from 2022 to 2021. So with those changes in place, we would anticipate closing reserves at the end of 2021 at $2,328,000. I wanted to highlight, as part of that $2.3 million, just a hair over $1 million of that is dedicated to landfill remediation costs. So that's part of that landfill reserve. It can only be used for that purpose. So really, it only leaves about $1.3 million available for other capital work. Changes from what you saw previously as the O&M budget to what we're proposing this evening. We heard the comments from council, and we implemented a few changes. So we reduced our targeted utility fund revenue increase. Previously, we targeted a $99,000 increase. We reduced that to $50,000. So what we were initially looking for was a 5% increase over the prior year budget, and we reduced that to 2.5%. We also reduced our targeted property tax revenue increase from $188,000 to $125,000. So rather than what would have been a 3% increase, we shifted that to a 2% increase. We also included a vacancy rate. So previously, the figure that council saw had no vacancy rate included as part of the salary costs and employee benefits costs. We included a 3% vacancy rate. And we also budgeted the $1.5 million transfer to capital reserves, which I mentioned there on the last slide. So with all of those changes implemented, the revised O&M budget by division would show a very modest surplus at the end of the year. We're budgeting just over $12,000 surplus. But again, that now includes the transfer to capital of $1.5 million, which in this presentation I'm showing as an expense. In the audited financial statements will appear as a below the line expense, as it's really a transfer of your it's a transfer of your accumulated surplus. But our capital program really depends on that transfer happening. And again, I'll highlight this budget does not include any amortization expense. So if you're comparing this budget against prior year figures, that's just something to consider. But that's it in terms of the changes. And so I will yield control back.
Thank you. Just one comment from me off the hop that stood out. So there was an increase on our projected spending of about $725,000, and that was Beaver, you said. So that's our share of the project.
Sorry, you were speaking to the draws from reserves?
Yeah, projected spend out of our reserves increased by $725 since the original presentation, which you explained as being part of the moving the first half of that project forward to 2021. My question is that our percentage? That's our 25% of the funds, correct?
Correct. It's again, it's slightly more complicated because of the way the funding mix works. But the short answer is we're anticipating that the bulk of that work is going to be completed in 2021 rather than 2022. The total spend associated with that project is much greater than that incremental $700,000.
Correct, but the $700,000 we have to spend our share first. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about the reserve amounts and the balances in the reserves going forward. I know we did a 10-year capital plan. How does that put us in as far as projections and stuff going forward? Are we we're gonna continue to have to put in $1.5 million, or we're gonna have to see bigger increases in that, or at one point is there some points where we actually dip below or like very close to zero in those reserves?
I'm just gonna ask you one sec. Councillor Dufert, your mic still is on. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Director of Finance, or did you wanna deal with that one at SAO Smith?
I'll maybe start with it, and Director of Finance can add anything that's needed. Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, so what in our 10-year capital plan, we've went forward with just or with continuing the 1.5 million trend through the 10 years. That could change, of course. I'll note that I think we saw maybe over that 10-year period an increase in reserves, total reserves of maybe 800,000. So some growth there, but I'd only caution that. I mean, a couple of things. One is that as we'll more than likely we'll identify more projects, roadworks, some building works that we realize aren't in the 10-year capital plan that as we get more information through our asset management into next year, probably would be added. So there would be some more increased pressure there. We've also projected receiving funds through third-party contribution funding, such as ISIP. I spoke to the application in my update earlier. It's unlikely, I would say, that we will receive all the money that we've applied for. So those projects then become unfunded. So and then certain projects like the landfill closure, that's a specific reserve that I think we have about 800,000 in it right now. By 2014 or 2023-24, I think is when we start our budgeting to start that project. We'll hopefully have a bit more added to it. But as we're seeing right now, closure costs are being estimated at about 5 million. So we have 800,000 of that cost available to us right now. So again, crossing fingers on funding. But the intent would be, in that case, to deplete that reserve for that project, obviously.
Thank you. Any questions from council? None being noted. I guess we're looking for a motion. Need a motion on the floor. Probably should ask for that before, but okay. So Councillor Dufert and Councillor Willows. Do you want to make that motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River approves the 2021 capital budget as presented on the condition that the projects that are identified for funding through third-party sources are approved in principle, subject to confirmation of the contributing funding approval.
Okay, and that was seconded by Councillor Willows. So any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. So item number 8B, 2021 O&M Consolidated Budget. I'm going to get a motion first here. Councillor Willows?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move that the Council of the Town of Hay River approves the 2021 Consolidated O&M Budget as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by? Okay, Deputy Mayor. Any questions to the O&M budget? Councillor Dowie, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Not so much question, just a couple of comments. I just want to thank administration and the Finance Committee and Council for the work on this. Leading up to a couple of weeks ago and a few weeks ago on the capital, obviously. But the I understand where we are, and that it's some things are increasing, and there's going to be some people that aren't happy with that, as there always will be. But I think even this tonight is more of a balance than I would have thought we could have struck after a couple of weeks ago. So I want to thank administration for that. not a whole lot, nothing really to answer or nothing really to ask. We've seen this now more than a few times, so I just want to just kind of reiterate our appreciation that we were able to work together and get this done.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to thank staff for all the hard work on this for sure. But my concerns come in the fact that we need to continue to lobby the GNWT. We know the town's underfunded. I just read in the paper today a good editorial about the dump fire and them not funding us for that, and not saying that it's an emergency, but it's like black smoke coming over our community, and I just can't believe they wouldn't have funded that. So, I mean, those all tied to us, and they tied to our wanting to build capital reserves to take advantage of, aging infrastructure in our community. So it's, that GNWT shortfall is definitely hurting us. And I want to say they're doing it on the backs of the residents of the River. Like these 2%, 3% increases are all because the GNWT doesn't want to pay a bill that, costs this town $1 million. It's very frustrating in that respect. And they're not only that, they're also underfunding us by a whole bunch, and they've admitted to it. They just don't want to pony up to the capital or the O&M money for us. So yeah, it's very frustrating with what we're seeing from the GNWT.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? None being noted. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Good job. And I too would like to thank, I know it's been a long haul, and this time of year, everybody's busy. So yes, thank you for all your hard work, our finance committee, and definitely administration and our directors. Hopefully everybody can take a bit of a breather over the holidays and regroup and come back stronger than ever. So good one. So with that, I do have a couple quick updates for in camera. So I'm going to ask each of you, take your mics off, and I'll ask you individually, do you solemnly swear and sincerely affirm that you are alone and cannot be overheard while in camera? I'll start with Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. I swear.
Thank you. Councillor Willows.
I swear.
Deputy Mayor.
I swear.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Worship. I swear.
Councillor Grunewagen.
Swear.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Your Worship. I swear.
Councillor Dufert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I swear.
Thank you. Okay, so it is, what do I got for time? 7:15. We'll meet back in 5 minutes. So
Mayor Jamieson, you need to have a motion to go into camera.
Oh, sorry. Need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Willows, thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Bouchard. All in favor? Okay, we're in camera. Thank you, Stacy. Okay, see you back here in 4 minutes.
Merry Christmas to everybody that's leaving.